Probably not a stretch to call this one of the most challenging times in the history of brick and mortar retailing. How do you run a business when there have been restrictions on customers coming into your stores? And there are still big questions ahead. Now, in recent weeks during the COVID-19 pandemic, we've had some regular updates from Heather Reisman, who is the founder and CEO of Indigo. And Heather joins us again this morning with a little bit more on what's happening with her business. Heather, thanks for being back with us.
It's a pleasure. How are you doing, John?
Let's just start with well, I'm working at home. I hear my kids in the other room. You know, that's the new reality, but that's a lot better than a lot of folks out there. Tell me a little bit more just about the day-to-day with your business and how it's going right now.
Well, I think Indigo is in a similar position to all retailers who are classified in the non-essential retail group, which means all of our physical locations are closed. And so there's so much about operating in this way that affects any retailer on a day-to-day basis. On the good news front, our online business has been allowed to continue to operate. But of course, we have to practice very strict social distancing, which means, of course, that we can keep people safe, our number one ambition, but it does impact our ability to be as productive as we want. Notwithstanding that, we've been very happy to be able to keep that part going. On the retail side, the store side, it is really challenging. Look, there's no way to sugarcoat what it's like to have 200 stores fully closed for now going on. We're into our third month. This is a huge impact on Indigo, and it is a huge impact on anybody who's been anywhere in the retail sector. I mean, this is big, John. This is really big. So, you know, like every other CEO, we're doing our best to keep our teams fully functioning at home, understanding what their challenges are. But think about it this way. It's enough to try and run a business. Now we're trying to run a business with 3/4 of it closed, trying to address the needs and concerns of our employees, thinking about what it's like to open up again. We'll need entirely different environments. We have prepared now for being able to open with the safest of environments for our employees and our customers, but it's a lot of demand, a lot. So nothing easy about this.
And you have to think about the short. Right, and you have to think about the short term and the long term, and one of the things you've talked to us in the past about is that worry around a relapse, and this is a theme we're constantly talking about with reopening. Part of the dialogue now, we heard it in the U.S. last night, Anthony Fauci warning about the serious impacts of getting back to business too soon. So what are you thinking about on that front? And as someone who is seeing this with your stores on the front line, what kind of conversation do you have with the government about something like that?
Well, our main conversation with government, and I'll put that aside if you want to ask about it, our main conversation with government has to do with the role they will play relative to our sector in getting it back on its feet. We employ 1.4 million people in our sector. But in terms of the reopening, look, we think that the best way to look at this is at some point, it is going to be the reality that people are going to go back out, but it will not be the world as we knew it. So we are planning to make our environments as safe as possible. We're fortunate in that for the majority, we are large stores, so we can keep customers at a good distance from each other, but we are putting up plastic shields in front of cash. Our employees will wear gloves and masks, excuse me. We will have masks available for customers if they come in and if they want to come in and they don't have them. I mean, we will treat our environment as if we needed to keep it totally safe as for a family member. And that's what we're doing. We're totally geared up to do that. And we think that is the only appropriate way to be in business during this period.
And let's come back to what you were alluding to there, because last time we spoke, you mentioned you'd been having some conversations with other retailers and landlords and the government about how to help the industry, the retail sector, navigate through this. Do you have any updates on that?
Well, all we can say is we have been working unbelievably hard to bring to government a proposal which would see landlords actually take a leadership role and provide support to retailers through this period. And putting that on the table, we have been talking to government about their doing a part to help us. I mean, just think about this. You can't operate a business when you're closed. The costs are enormous. So there was an announcement on Monday, some large business announcement. I think a lot has to be clarified before anybody can sort out what that will mean. Our interest has been for the retail sector in total, and we're hoping that the government is going to take a very intelligent, let me say that, an intelligent position to allow us to leverage what the landlords have been offering. And that's where it stands. It's not resolved yet. I'm very hopeful, since I think it is an amazingly positive solution that would take enormous pressure off all retailers. But we're just going to have to see. We're still in wait mode. But I will say we're getting impatient.
And you're talking about this LEAF program that the federal government unveiled, which is, it's not just for retail, it's for airlines, it's for energy, it's for any larger companies that are challenged and are in need of access to capital. It sounds to me like you just don't think that program is going to be enough to assist the retail sector.
We don't know. We don't know whether a piece of that program and a piece of a smaller program will be the right thing for the whole retail sector. To be honest, John, it's very hard to tell from the announcement that was made on Monday exactly what that program will be about. It simply was an indication that something was going to be done, and maybe a large business is anything from 50 million to a couple of billion. We don't even know what the scope is. Our focus is for all retailers of all sizes. So would part of that work? Would something work? We're hopeful, but honestly, the government needs to move. They need to move. This is the sector that really is the front end of the economy. It is the front end, and it is a massive employer in Canada.
And you're also sort of touching on an issue that, based on the rollout, one would think we're actually starting to see at least some traction in the real world, which is the rent relief story. But you're talking about ongoing conversations with landlords, et cetera. I mean, in terms of some of the action that has been taken on rent relief programs to date, are you seeing any evidence that might help? Because obviously that was a huge program the government hoped would be helpful.
I can't say. I haven't heard that program has yet been fully understood or accessed. Not many of the people I've talked to have fully understood how to access that program. And I think the role that the position the landlords are taking is they could be open to really taking their part of the pain. Look, John, the point here is there's a huge amount of pain at nobody's fault caused by this pandemic. This requires that everybody, the government, businesses, banks, everybody has to take some piece of this pain in order to ensure that the overall economy moves forward. And I think what we've seen is a couple of good moves by the government, but they're at the very, very beginning of, frankly, taking the steps to help this economy get back on track. It's great to be helping people who are at home. It's fantastic to be giving employers some employment top up. But in total, we need to support the people who are in business, whether a little business or a medium or a large size business, to make it through this period and come out the other end. That has to happen, or the long-term ability of the country to thrive will really be in question. So it's something significant has to start to happen.